In one of Manila's quietest yet most forgotten corners, the sun dipped behind crooked rooftops made of rusted tin, casting long shadows across an alley that most people walked past without a second glance. Children here didn't grow up with playgrounds or shining toys. They grew up with imagination. And among them, 7-year-old Milo was the king of imagination. Every evening, when the heat softened and the breeze carried the scent of street food and damp earth, Milo performed magic shows for the neighborhood kids. His stage was a wooden crate flipped upside down. His spotlight was a flickering bulb hanging from a frayed wire. And his props, oh, his precious props, were simple treasures he found while scavenging through the junk piles behind the market: a bent deck of mismatched cards, a smooth bottle cap he polished like a coin, a piece of red cloth torn from an old curtain, a roll of thread so thin it was almost invisible to anyone else. These were scraps. But to Milo, they were magic waiting to happen on this particular night. As the sky turned a deep shade of purple, the alley was packed tighter than usual. Kids sat cross-legged on the dirt ground, their eyes reflecting Milo's tiny silhouette. Adults leaned against walls, taking a break from long, exhausting workdays. Even the stray cats slowed down, curling their tails and settling near the crates. But none of them knew the truth. Tonight's performance wasn't just for fun. Tonight, Milo was fighting a quiet battle. Earlier that morning, his little sister, 5-year-old Leia, had woken up weak and feverish again. Her breathing was thin, her lips pale. The medicine the doctor recommended was far too expensive, more than his mother earned in 2 weeks of washing laundry for neighbors. When Milo saw his mother crying softly behind their curtain divider, he made a decision with the seriousness of someone far older than 7. "I'll earn it, Mama," he whispered, placing his tiny hand over her trembling one. "I'll make magic big enough to help Leia." And so he gathered every child in the alley and announced that tonight's show would be special. The kids cheered, tossing coins into a plastic cup even before the show had begun. Some dropped single pesos. Others contributed little trinkets they thought Milo could sell. It wasn't much, but to Milo, it was hope. Now, standing on his crate, Milo looked at the waiting faces. His heart pounded not from stage fright but from fear of failing. "Leia!" He took a deep breath and held up his battered deck of cards. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice small but steady, "welcome to the Alley of Magic." The children gasped as Milo made the first card float, just a small tug of thread and a burst of confidence. But to them, it was impossible, beautiful, mesmerizing. A quiet hush fell over the alley. For a moment, it felt like the world paused, listening. No one knew that just outside the alley, a volunteer touring the neighborhood heard the applause and lifted her phone to record the tiny magician. She had no idea that this video would soon cross oceans, break hearts, and rewrite the future of a boy who believed that magic, real magic, was something you made with love. 3 weeks passed since the night Milo performed what the neighbors now called the miracle show. Life in the alley returned to its rhythm: peddlers shouting prices, children running barefoot, mothers hanging laundry beneath the relentless sun. But for Milo and his family, the days felt heavier. Leia's medicine was working slowly, and their savings from the magic show had already been spent. Milo tried to stay hopeful. He practiced new tricks every afternoon beside their tiny home, whispering encouragement to himself while Leia watched from the doorway wrapped in a thin blanket. "Kuya," she would say softly, "you'll be a big magician one day. Bigger than on TV." He always smiled, but a worry hid behind his eyes. Then, on a humid afternoon when the clouds threatened rain, fate came knocking in the most unexpected way. A knock, sharp and urgent. Milo's mother, Aling Rosa, wiped her wet hands on her skirt and opened the door. Standing there was the barangay courier. holding a large envelope sealed with a gold star. "For you," he said simply. Aling Rosa frowned. They never received mail-only bills. She turned the envelope over, scanning it for clues. Milo peeked. From behind her, "What is it, Mama?" I don't know, a knock," she whispered. When she opened it, a crisp breeze seemed to leave her lungs. The paper slipped from her hands and floated to the dusty floor. She covered her mouth. Her knees buckled, and Milo panicked. "Mama! Mama, what's wrong?" With trembling fingers, she pointed at the letter. Milo picked it up and read slowly, sounding out each English word the way his teacher taught him. "Congratulations. You are officially invited to audition for America's Got Talent." He stopped breathing. The neighborhood children, overhearing the chaos, gathered around. Someone yelled, "What happened?" Another leaked the news before they fully understood it. Soon, the entire alley erupted with shouts, laughter, tears, a celebration loud enough to scare the stray cats away. But Milo just stood frozen, staring at the letter. He didn't understand how. Why him? Why now? Then Leia ran from the doorway weak, but fueled by excitement, and hugged him so tightly he nearly fell backward. "You did it, Kuya," she cried, her tiny voice breaking. "You made magic big enough. I knew it." At that moment, the volunteer who had recorded Milo's performance appeared again, breathless. "I've been looking for you. Your video millions of people watched. It reached producers in the U.S. They want you there. All of you." Milo's heart thundered in his chest. America's Got Talent. That was the stage he watched on a neighbor's old TV set. The show that felt like a different universe. Now he was being asked to stand on it. The next days flew in a blur, neighbors pooling coins for travel snacks, a tricycle driver lending Milo his only clean shoes, the church donating a suitcase. Someone even patched Milo's worn red cloth cape so it shimmered again. When the day arrived, the family stepped onto an airplane for the first time. Milo held Leia's hand tightly, staring at the window as clouds drifted below. "Leia," he whispered, "I'm going to make magic. For you, for all of us." And somewhere far ahead, across the ocean, a stage waited, glittering, enormous, and ready for the tiniest magician to rewrite destiny. Asterisk the moment Milo stepped inside the AGT theater. His breath caught in his throat. It wasn't like the tiny stages he had imagined on TV. It was bigger, brighter, and buzzing with thousands of excited voices. Lights danced across the room. Cameras rolled like watchful giants. And the iconic star-shaped stage glowed as if welcoming dreams themselves. But Milo wasn't alone. Beside him stood his 4 closest friends from the Manila alley. Toto, who could juggle anything. Kara, the fastest hands Milo had ever seen. Benjo, the quiet genius who helped build tricks from recycled junk. And Leia, bundled in a soft jacket, too weak to perform but desperate to watch her brother shine. Backstage, the kids clung to each other, trembling with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. They had never seen so many people in one place. The sound of the crowd felt like an earthquake in their chests. A crew member crouched beside them. "You guys ready?" Milo nodded, though his hands were shaking so badly he had to grip his homemade magic box tightly. The curtain parted. The stage manager whispered, "Go." As the 5 children stepped into the spotlight, a hush rippled through the theater. They looked impossibly small, tiny silhouettes against a mountain of lights. Simon Cowell raised an eyebrow, curious. "What are your names?" he asked. Milo swallowed. "I am Milo, and these are my friends. We're from the Philippines. We do magic." "Magic?" Simon repeated, leaning forward. "All of you?" Toto nodded. Kara gave a shy wave. The judges exchanged amused glances, expecting a simple trick at best. The music began soft, whimsical, like wind chimes dancing in the air. And then the magic started. Toto tossed 3 old bottle caps into the air, and they transformed into shimmering silver coins mid-flight, raining down like tiny stars. The audience gasped. Kara snapped her fingers, and a torn newspaper stitched itself back together perfectly. But the moment that stole every breath came from Milo. He stepped forward, holding a delicate paper butterfly he had crafted the night before. Its wings were decorated with faded colors, drawn using Laya's old crayons. The theater was silent as he lifted it into the air. "Believe in small miracles," Milo whispered. With a flick of his wrist, the butterfly rose first gently, then soaring higher, glowing faintly under the spotlight. And suddenly, before anyone understood what was happening, the paper butterfly transformed into a real one. A living, breathing, fluttering butterfly, wings shimmering gold. It glided across the stage, over the judge's desk, hovering inches from Simon's astonished face. The audience erupted into screams of disbelief. The judges stood up. Cameras zoomed in. Leah covered her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. Simon slowly sat back in his chair, stunned. "This," he whispered, "this is real magic." Backstage crew rushed to the monitors, unable to believe what they were seeing. Children watching at home pressed their faces close to the screens. The world seemed to pause, captivated by 5 tiny magicians from a forgotten alley half a world away. When the butterfly finally settled on Milo's shoulder, he smiled through trembling lips, not because he had impressed the judges, but because, for the first time in his life, he felt seen. Asterisk. Asterisk. The roar of the audience still echoed through the theater as the final notes of the music faded. Milo and his friends stood frozen in the center of the stage, eyes wide, chests rising and falling like they had just outrun a storm. Gold lights shimmered overhead, reflecting off the stunned faces of the judges. Then Simon leaned forward, elbows on the desk, studying the children as though he had just witnessed something unreal. "Milo," he said softly, how did you learn to do all of this?" The crowd grew quiet. The other judges leaned in. Even the cameras seemed to stop breathing. Milo blinked, his heartbeat thudding loud enough to drown the silence. He wasn't used to speaking in front of adults, especially not famous ones. He looked to Kara, then Toto, then back at Simon. With a shaky voice, he began, My sister Laya gets sick a lot, sir." Laya, sitting in the front row, lowered her head as tears welled up. Milo clutched his magic box tighter. "And I wanted to make her smile, even when she didn't feel strong. So I started reading magic books that someone threw away behind the market. They were old and torn, but I fixed them." Kara added in a small voice, "He taught us all. We helped each other." Benjo nodded, fiddling with the hem of his shirt. "We practiced every day, even when we didn't have food sometimes." A soft murmur rippled through the audience. People wiped their eyes. A woman in the second row clasped her chest. Simon's expression shifted. What began as curiosity softened into something deeper. He had seen thousands of acts, but rarely had he seen children speak with this kind of honesty. Milo continued, even though he had to swallow hard between words. "I wanted to earn money so Mama could buy medicine for Laya. That's why I do magic. Not to be famous, just to help her stay alive." Laya burst into quiet sobs. The judges covered their mouths. The audience broke into soft cries that filled the room like a trembling symphony. One of the judges, Sofia Vergara, stood up slowly and walked toward the children. Her heels tapped gently against the stage floor as she knelt in front of Milo. "You didn't come here for applause," she said, brushing a tear from her cheek. "You came here because love made you brave." Milo bowed his head, unsure how to respond. Toto squeezed his shoulder. Kara took his hand. They stood together, tiny warriors who had carried their dreams and fears across the ocean. The theater fell into a silence so complete it felt sacred. And in that moment, something shifted, not just on stage, but in the hearts of everyone watching. The judges exchanged a long, knowing look. An unspoken decision passed between them. Their eyes glimmered not with pity, but with respect. Sophia returned to her seat, whispering, "These kids didn't bring a magic show. They brought a miracle." The air thickened with anticipation. The children stood trembling, because something extraordinary was about to happen. Asterisk for a heartbeat. The entire GT theater felt suspended in time, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Milo stood with his friends, their small hands locked together, trembling beneath the blazing lights. They didn't understand what the judges were silently communicating with their eyes, but the audience seemed to sense it. A wave of tension surged through the room. A child in the balcony whispered, Are they gonna hit it?" And then Howie Mandel pushed his chair back, stood up, and placed his hand over the golden buzzer. Simon followed. Then Heidi. Then Sophia. All four judges leaned in, hands stacked together, united in a single powerful motion. "Kids," Simon said softly, his voice suddenly warm, "you've already done the impossible. Now let us do a little magic for you." Boom! A thunderous burst of sound exploded through the theater as all four judges slammed their hands down together. And instantly, an eruption of gold confetti shot into the air, swirling like a golden storm. The kids screamed. The audience leapt to their feet. The theater dissolved into an ocean of cheers, tears, and blinding golden light. Milo froze, staring upward as thousands of sparkling pieces rained over him. For a moment, he felt weightless, like he was no longer the poor boy from the alley, but someone who belonged on the biggest stage in the world. Then he felt a warm tug on his sleeve. Kuya. Laya. She had rushed onto the stage, stumbling past crew members who tried gently to guide her. Milo dropped to his knees just in time to catch her tiny body in a tight embrace. "You did magic big enough," she whispered into his shoulder, her voice cracking but full of pride. I told you you'd do it." Milo squeezed her, tears spilling down his cheeks. "I did it for you, Laya. Everything. Everything was for you." Behind them, Toto laughed through tears. Kara spun in circles, catching confetti. With both hands, Benjo pressed his palms to his face, overwhelmed. They weren't just performers now. They were Golden Buzzer winners, a title that would change their lives forever. But the miracles were only beginning. Backstage, producers hurried to call partner charities. Viewers around the world rushed to donate after hearing their story. Doctors from multiple hospitals sent messages offering free treatment for Laya. Even a Filipino community group in Los Angeles pledged support for the entire family. By the time the kids were escorted off stage, they were surrounded by people offering hugs, praise, and help they never imagined receiving. As the golden confetti still drifted behind them like falling stars, Milo glanced back at the stage, the very place where he had once dreamed of standing. He didn't feel small anymore. He didn't feel invisible. He felt possible. Laya held his hand, her eyes shining. "Milo," she whispered, "what happens now?" He smiled, wiping her tears with gentle fingers. "Now," he said softly, "we go home and make magic for everyone who needs it." And in that moment, in a world too often divided, 5 little magicians reminded millions of people that the greatest magic isn't a trick. It's love. Love that gives. Love that believes. Love that changes everything.